MMA Rants and Raves, UFC 109. Randy the Natural Couture vs. Mark the Hammer Coleman. You know what, guys? This should be a pretty interesting fight because these two guys are legends of the sport. Just look at Mark Coleman. The guy is a pioneer. He is the very first UFC heavyweight champion. He's also the guy that invented the ground and pound as we know it today in mixed martial arts. So it should be really interesting to see him up against Randy Couture, a guy who is the best at what he does as far as Roman Greco, the clinch, dirty boxing, the elbows and knees, the combination, pressing his opponent against the cage, trying to wear him out. Great strategy. I love when he tries to do that. So that should be a really interesting combination, seeing these two guys with their different styles. And they have the most experience doing it than any other fighter because they've been around longer than everybody. So it should be interesting to see. Here's the way I see this match going. I see it where these two guys are going to try to stand up with each other a little bit. And I think the reason is because they have the same reach. They're both at about 75-inch reach. So they'll try to stand up with each other. Coleman has knockout power. Couture is a very good striker. He's good at throwing combinations. But the thing is, I think Couture is just more of a well-rounded fighter. He just does a lot more. He's got good stand-up. He's also a ground and pound type of guy. He's very good with the clinch, the Roman Greco, the dirty boxing, the elbows, the knees. He's just very, very well-rounded. And I think he's in better shape. And that's the key here. That's another key. Because in Coleman's career, he's shown that he can gas later in matches, later in fights. And you can go back 12 years ago against Maurice Smith. I mean, just look at the end of that fight. I mean, it was, he looked like he was going to collapse. And then the fight before, the one he fought Bonner against Shogun, he started to breathe heavily. He was gassing out. He did look good against Bonner, so that's a good sign for him. But basically, Couture is going to try to wear him out. That's what he tries to do. Just look at the Brandon Vera fight. He had him pressed up against the cage almost the entire fight. So he's going to try to get him up against the cage. And he's going to be successful doing it. I'll tell you why. Because if you look at his other matches, especially against Brock Lesnar, I mean, this is a guy who has 50, 60 pounds on him, you know? And he had him pressed up against that cage for much of the first round. This guy's much larger than he is and has a lot of strength advantage. And he did very well. So think about it. He's not going to have a hard time against a 205-pound Coleman if he did it against Brock Lesnar. And he just did it against Brandon Vera, who's a pretty big guy too. So basically, the way I see it, I see Randy trying to stand up with Mark Coleman. I see him trying to do the Roman Greco and a mixture of the dirty boxing and the elbows, and maybe go for some takedowns. I basically see Couture trying to gas Coleman out and possibly winning this fight by unanimous decision. That's the way I see it, guys. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this fight and what you think is going to happen. Please leave those comments. Please subscribe, and thank you for tuning in.